In the previous lesson, we saw how we can work with different types of mapping and different tools to map our textures and our materials on our 3D objects. So we saw tools that are part of Cinema 4D and also tools that are part of REDSHIFT, which one of these is the triplanar node or triplanar node. And we also worked with the texture um, modifier, the texture edit mode in Cinema 4D, which is also useful to position textures and again graphics and other material effects onto the objects. Now we talk about the different type of tiling. So we can have like non-tileable texture, like an image or a picture or a TV screen or a graphic for a packaging product design, Unwrap map, and so on. So we have like images that cannot be repeated and other that can be repeated. And we use this floating tiny home model because it has a lot of from Sketchfab, because it has a lot of repeated texts like the wood planks and so on. So this is a perfect example. Usually in architecture and like big surfaces, we use repetition because we need to cover larger areas. Now with the arc model, we saw that we didn't have the mapping correct, so we need to fix that with a triplanar, and then we also use this, and we're going to reuse it also in this lesson. Also want to show you these models from Polyhaven, which we downloaded in the previous lesson, and here we can find the packaging or unwrapping texture that we can modify. We can create our own if we want. Once we understand the mapping of our object, we can change it. We can change it in software like Substance or Photoshop. We can change it in any graphic design software. And I will make an example about this. So you either like change and create your textures and materials in 3D directly or using the texture. Now we use the FBX and the GLTF formats, and apparently the FBX is working better at the moment with REDSHIFT. So we found the textures in here. Instead, using this other type, we didn't find the texture when we imported it, so we need to create it right away. And this is also another unwrapping example. We can see the defects of the material, we can see leaking, we can see worn out parts, scratches, dirt, and all that stuff, which is going to make your material more realistic, and in the end also your object more realistic. So in Polyhaven we found a lot of these models. You can see they are all like a little bit consumed and they're not perfect. They have scratches, they have stickers, they have graphics, they are non-perfect, and that what makes them a little bit more realistic. Now how can we do that? How can we do that in in software in 3D? We can use Substance. That's, I think, the best one. Also we have a free open source alternative, which is Armor Paint. And if you want, you can check the Substance course in the channel. And also with Photoshop, we have some tools that can help us to work directly in 3D, and also like creating normal maps or bump maps. So you find these video guides in the Photoshop playlist in the channel, or if you want to look for something into specific, just type it in the channel, you probably will find it. Now in the channel, we also dedicated some video guides on creating normal maps and height maps, or to manage and edit normal maps and height maps or bump maps, displacement map, and roughness, and so on. So this normal map online, for example, is a website that can help you save and create your maps, whether they are normals or normal map or bump. And also there is another software you can download. It's called Materialize. It's free, open source, and it's going to help you to create all the textures you need. Again, this is covered in another video guide if you're interested. In this video, I want to use an open source or a free online photo editor, which is called Pixlr. And again, you find a video course in the channel also about this. But I'm going to quickly do an example of how you can change, customize an unwrap map, and to do a little bit of packaging. And we have some various tools here in Pixlr, but I'm gonna go with the Express because it's like quicker. So I just open up the image, and with the open image button, I'm gonna select one of these two diffuse of the two spray can that we have downloaded from Polyavan. So let's go for this black one. And I want to apply a logo, for example, or any graphics like text, vector graphics, wherever. So I'm going to go on the left side. You have all of the adjustments you can do, like color correction, cropping, and whatever. To add a new element, we're going to go down there. We can use these elements that we find already in Pixel, or we can click on add resource, add element, graphic element, and we can navigate into our computer and get something that we have. Now, I have some logos in PNG. PNG doesn't have the background, so I don't have to remove it. It's just going to come without the background. That's going to be really handy when I work with layers in Texas. So you can work with layers. Layers are part of Photoshop, part of Pixels, part of GIMP, all the graphic design software. They have layers, because with the layer I can manage all the different parts of the object. I can treat them differently. I can edit each single part of this. If I was the creator of this packaging, which I'm not, I'm just adding some few layers just to show you how you can add to this. But if you know how to use Illustrator or Inkscape, the open source alternative, Photoshop or GIMP, the open source alternative, or the Pixels tools. This one here is the Pixel editor. It's the bigger one. It looks really similar to Photoshop, and I can save here with both application. I can save in JPEG if I don't want an alpha channel. If I don't want a transparency on the background, I can just save a JPEG. Otherwise, if you need an alpha channel, you may want to go with the PNG. Alpha channel means transparency of the background, essentially. And we're going to use that in this video. I'm going to show you how you can use it. So I'm just going to, well, I don't want to override this, so I'm going to save a variant, and then I want to apply it to that spray can. So I either change the original material or I create a new one. Let me see here. This is a node material that we discovered in the previous lesson. We talked about the node editor of Cinema 4D instead of using the REDSHIFT editor. Again, you can use both. In this case, you see here the link. We can just click on the little folder once we select the texture node and then select the Polyavan texture. I'm going quick here because this is something we already discovered in the previous lesson. So I'm just going to assume that you absorb all that information and you are a little bit more expert now. So I've applied the various logos, and you can see this is the updated texture, the updated Unwrap texture. So if I zoom in, you can see the logo in there. Probably I need to rotate it upside down, but it's there. It's fine. We can start from there. So you get the idea. You need to understand how the mapping is done on that object to be more precise. But that's just an example of how you can do a little bit of packaging again. And also we can look for textures not only on the web, but on the asset editor. On the asset browser, we find a lot of textures we can download here. We have scratches, we have dirt, we have stains, we have leaking, different types of defects that you can add in the roughness channel, in the bump channel, in the metalness channel. All these black and white textures here, they can help to create more advanced materials. And you also find like ready-made materials, the ones with the REDSHIFT logo with the little red hexagon, they will be ready to be used for REDSHIFT. Now you can use the asset browser for so many reasons. You have here in the materials a folder called substances, and these are all materials from Substance that are already prepared for you, so you can just add them to your projects just by clicking and dragging. Otherwise, you can create your own materials in Substance, of course. Now, if you look for REDSHIFT in the asset browser, you will find all the models, all the elements, the graphic elements, the materials. You can filter and search for only the materials. Now, all of these can be used with REDSHIFT. Some of these require the Maxon 1 license, but most of them can be used. So if I want to change these, I can the bed sheets. I can just find out where they are applied and just substitute the material, dragging and dropping from the library into the little sphere in the object panel, and that's it. Now this looks way more better than the one that was there before. Now let's change the scene. I want to go back to this scene that we prepared on the previous lesson because I want something simple. I don't want a heavy scene, and this is again the previous spray can. Now I'm going to show you something else here.